Peace, 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 peace to the God and peace to the goddess. Welcome to another broadcast of In the Circle Ministries, our YouTube virtual ministry here, and I'm your host, Rico Blakeney. And here, where we take things and put them up under a microscope, we take our plural eyes and make them singular. Scripture says, if our plural eyes be singular, then our body be full of light. And with our body being full of light, we can see things in the truth they are. And once we can see things in their certain truth, then we can take those things and apply them to our life and get the results that we desire out of them. Um, Happy Tuesday, says Sister Corinne from Above and Beyond with Corinne. That is the name of her channel. Um, Go check her out. She has her show every Thursdays at 7 o'clock. She gives a bunch of insight and a bunch of good things that can um, help you orchestrate yourself and help you to grow in ways that you may not have known that they was able to be brought to you in a way. So she has great insight, great knowledge, and great experience with those things. So go check her out and see what she got going on. And thank you for coming and always being um, a beacon of light over here as well. Um, we're going to get into a couple of things too, though, before we get into the subject matter for the night. Um, I did want to touch out on another thing that I did another live video, but my phone, whenever I do it on my phone, it ends up whenever I try to broadcast, it does it as private. So I have to figure out how to get that set and set because I do set it for public and it still, once I try to end the live or do whatever, it shows up as private. But it was like the benefit of me eating healthy or whatever. But the other benefits that I had outside of that, the physical benefits of eating clean and not eating meat and going through the experiments I was telling you I was doing with myself and on my body, was not eating meat within those 6 months. After that, I noticed that I didn't have body odor, quit wearing deodorant, um, didn't have meat or the extra flesh in my body or something called fermenting in my system. So that didn't cause no body odors. And it also, my stool was softer and cleaner, and my boo boo didn't stink. Um, Used the bathroom regularly 3 times a day, um, 3 to 4 times a day. Use the restroom, and the body working in this proper way, or my body working in this proper way, when it brings in the food and it get rid of the waste, it was getting rid of it in a proper manner. There was none to stand around to get bad. And even one time when we were eating onion soup, we ate it pretty heavy for like 2 days, and still um, my body didn't put off the odor of onions. So those were some of the other benefits of me eating clean. So I think what I was saying in the video as well was like with a different mindset, it comes with different things. It's going to bring about a different lifestyle. It's going to bring about a different diet in a sense. It's going to bring about an awareness that's going to bring about a change. But I want to put that out there too. And from last week videos, I say I watch a lot of my own work secondhand after I do my videos. I go back and watch them again. And I was talking about a flashlight that I had, and what I was trying to say was, or what I should have said was that it works by a rechargeable battery that's inside of it. It's not like a regular AAA or AA battery. So the life expectancy for the flashlight lasts forever. So whenever it's not operating, more likely it needs to be recharged. It don't need to be. The batteries don't need to be replaced, because if you try to replace them with the AA batteries or the AAA batteries, they won't work. But anyway, so I wanted to get that, as I always do, try to, if I can catch myself and correct myself, I will do. Um, but anyway, we talked about 3 different creation stories last week, and we talked about a whole bunch of different gods in forms of the way that wouldn't be the normal God of or the way that we would know the God of the Bible, or the God of the Quran, things of that way. But it speaks of the other gods as well. The other Bible speaks of other different gods too, in different names and different scenarios. So the keys for unlocking the Bible is about showing different things and bringing things about that you would probably hear prominent, because the Bible is the prominent um, thing that we have for religion. over here, or so we don't deal much with much of the Greek mythology or any of the Mesopotamian or Babylonian things that I've been showing here and have been showing since last time. Peace to you too. Also, C King Bay, he says peace to everyone. Thank you for coming out too. But showing that there's a lot of things in there, as like I stated before, in my walk or my journey in self mastery, searching in the truth, because I was holding the Bible as my key of truth. It was my source of truth, as most standard people do that are believers in Christianity uh, in some shape, form, or fashion. But anyway, we have another one we'll be talking about today, which is older than all three of the ones that we talked about. I think last week I was explaining about how in Genesis, in the book of Genesis, the compiled manuscript that they have to bring the book of Genesis together is a rewrite. Genesis 1 was written several hundred years later after Genesis 2 was. And I'm talking about chapters. So that the way the book is compiled is not the way or the order that the information is what is received. There's been a bunch of things done before, a bunch of editing, adding done before the compiling of what we get it today. But so in those two creation stories, you will have man being created on from Genesis 1 by the priesthood, man created on the sixth day, and then in the original, once you start at Genesis 2, you'll have man being created on like third day. And then we went into the Enumilist, which is a creation story, and it's more so, from my understanding and my perspective, it's more so the gods as also being the celestial beings, or um, like in the Kabbalion speaks of, in a sense, about the universe. These things and these bodies are more the gods of the things that are all eternal. Those things that have been here or been there in the sky since man could observe them, and well before man could observe them, and ever since of man's been able to record their observing of those things. Those things are there. Uh, sun, the moon, stars, the 12 zodiacs, the other stars, and things of that nature. Those are the things that they would call the universe. Those are um, the things that bestly or the closest that humanity can have to describe God, or the infinite. And but anyway, so that was more of those gods, and then the lower gods or the other gods were created. And when we get into the story of Ostrahisis, and I may not be pronouncing it right, so doing my best, and I'll show you the spelling of it. It is older than the Enumilist and these stories that we read last week about the gods that were created, but some of the same gods. And so I show you that, and we'll talk a little bit about the Noah story. And this, what we'll be reading today, and I'm only going to read tablet 1 out of the story of Atrahasis. I'm not sure how many it has, like 3 of them, but the first is going to be long enough. Um, but it's more like the first. They call it the first Great Flood myth. That's what it says here about this author here. First story created, and also you'll hear about some of these stories too in the Epic of Gilgamesh as well, of Gilgamesh, and the myth of Adapa. They tell some of the same similar stories, and it's touch on some of the flood and have some of the same gods, different names, but or older writings or older things as well. If you're into that, but mostly about the story of Noah is from here first, and the name and some of the things that went on. So when you hear it in the Bible, this is the first version of it, I will call it. So without further ado, we're gonna jump into it, since I say we do have a lot of reading. And as I did last week, I hold it up, and like this right here, this is the name of it. And and if you go back later on and watch the replay, pause it, doing your replay and catch the pages I was getting unless you go out and purchase the book, same book by the same people. I got mine off Amazon. So if you purchase a book yourself, you can have it to go back. But if not, then this says tablet 1. We got a lot of reflection light in here. Try to get it where, and working with it backwards is crazy. Let me see. We'll do it that way. Turn that light. And yeah, maybe you'll get it from there. And tablet 1 starts off with this, and as I said, the name of Asher Hoshes, I'm not like I'm gonna give you tablet 1, and some of the others, the rest of the story, I'm gonna just tell you for the sake of time of reading and things of that nature. And also, as I was saying earlier, whenever you do see anything written in the books like this in them bold indentures, these are the stuff that they compile to figure from all the other uh, tablets, bits of fragments of tablets that they have of other stories that help them try to pull these words from their original words to this translation of words. Same thing they do in different translations of the Bible. But here we go. When the gods, not men, performed the works, bore the burdens, the weight was too great, and the work was too taxing, a sore plight. So the 7 great Anunnaki made the Igigi to take the load. The king was their father, Anu. Their counselor of war was Enlil. The chamberlain was Nimrod, and their channel manager, Inugi. Taking up the containers, they cast lots. The gods divided up so that Anu took his home in the heavens to live in the sky. Enlil went to make his abode among the men of the earth, and Abstute Inky acquired for himself the entire seas crater. And so, real quick, they were just saying here that um, when the gods did the work in the creating of the earth and doing all these other things before they got to the point of in the Bible when we hear them say, "Let us make man in our likeness and image," or when we hear it said in the Bible, the Elohim, it was used in sort of a plural tense. When God created the heavens and the earth, it still says Elohims, but it's used in a plural sense. So saying that whenever they was doing and creating all the things, they still actually did the work upon the earth to prepare it well before the man got there. So that's what this is speaking of in a sense. So and the GGs, they was the one, or the working class, or they were the one that was going to bear the actual labor and actual doing the work. And like I was saying, this is sort of, like I said, this is older than the Enumeralist that we read last week. So the Enumeralist is more so of add-on and details, as well as we talked about in last week's, about when you get different writings and different scriptures and things like that. So it was more of a rewriting add-on, like the Bible is a rewriting add-on of these books. So you have the older, and then uh, you have someone or something to have you have a different writing that tell the story a little differently. Same way with the book of Enoch, from the first one through all 6 of his books. You'll watch the growth in the book or the growth in the story. Um, and if you get into breaking down the Bible and the scriptures and all where the scriptures come from, the dates, from the information and the data that they have from fragments and pieces, then you will see the different dates and when certain parts was written, and then when everything else was added on, and how they collectively brought together the canon. Okay, if that makes sense. And so after that, they were talking about the earth and how they well not they was creating the earth, and the Igigi was doing it. But then at that time, the gods went to take up their positionings. And the numeralist, it was saying that it was Murdoch who set up Babylon upon the earth, and he was the one to set up all the stations for the gods and for where them to go to and where they were to go to. But in here, it's going to tell you that they chose for themselves. And so I knew he took the heavens, and it's the same gods from the Enumilist that we read about, and what God they were over. So Anu took the heavens and of the sky, and Enlil went to make his abode amongst men. So Enlil had his station was upon the earth. So and Enki, they called him in here the astute Enki. He acquired for himself the entire seas crater. Okay, now we're going to continue reading. After Anu was in the sky, and the Apsu gods did descend. Then the heavenly Anunnaki made the Ajiji take the load. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I got to pause real quick. So when you hear about the Annuminalist, they're telling in greater detail the things that happen after these things, um, the war with the gods and all that other stuff. So I don't know if we get through it to these in these books here, or maybe in another segue, but um, that's what was going on as well. Up in the sky, absolute gods did descend. Then the heavenly Anunnaki made the Ajiji take the load. They caused the gods to carve out the many water canals. They had to open up conduits, the substance of the land. They caused the Ajiji to carve out the many water canals. They had to open up conduits and substance of the land, so that the immortals carved out the channels of the river Tigris, and the divinities carved out the channel of the Euphrates, being a chamber at the lowest depths, setting stations or stanchions in the deep waters of the Apsu, beneath a covering of the land. They placed braces within, situation these to raise a loft. Those which stand at the peaks underlying all mountains, they that kept track of every long year that they worked, and they kept track of every long year that they worked. Uh, the access waters drained down to fill up the great swamp, and they kept track of every long year that they worked. It was 3,600 years in which they carried in the heavy loads. They worked. The work was burdensome. They were busy night and day, so they grumbled and blamed one another again enough. They complained over the piles of the soils that they had dug. So I'm sorry if I didn't show you. Um, I didn't show you what I was the pages I was reading. So let me try this and get my book right, maybe. Yeah, I was reading over here, and then this is the other page that I was reading. So I'll be going from 53 to 54, 58 to 59. I'm sorry. So that they might bring us rest among. Okay. And so they grumbled and blamed one another. They complained over the piles of souls they had dug up. We should go to the chamberlain, to our chief overseer, so that he might bring us rest from our unrelated, our unrelenting labors. Let us go and bring out the Lord and the superior authorities. As a counselor of war, bring him forth out of his house. Let us go there and collect Enlil as the supreme authority. As a counselor of war, bring him forth out of his house. Among them, Allah raised his voice to speak, um, and he heard making a speech to his brothers, to all the high gods. So Allah, same God as the God um, of the Muslims, and this is the Allah. It's still different from the God of the Bible and the Yahweh of the Bible. Once we get into this, and when you understand more so about it, Enlil being the God of the earth, this is where he made his dwelling of, and Anu being his heavenly father. So that's another one of the things that you'll hear about in the Bible in those places. So let me carry on. Making a speech to his brother and to all of the high gods. And we talked about to the most high God as well. So this is where this phrase has come from, about the high gods and the God of most high God of the Bible. We've kept track of every long year that we've worked. It has been 360 years we have carried the heavy loads. The work is burdensome. We remain busy night and day, So we grumble and blame one another often enough. We complain over the piles of soil that we have dug up. Excuse me. We should go to the chamberlain, to their chief counselor, overseer, so that we might bring us rest from the unrelenting labors. Let us go and bring out the Lord as the supreme authority, as the counselor of war. Bring him forth and of his house. Let us go there and collect Enlil as the supreme authority, as the counselor of war. Bring him forth out of the house. And I'm on page 59. So let us raise up the battle cry and bring war to the fore. The gods listened to every word as he made his speech. He placed their implements in piles and set them aflame. I'm sorry. If I didn't read too fast, it says the gods listened to every word as he made his speech. They placed their implements in piles and set them aflame. Their trouble dispatched to the fire gods consumed their fire. When they arrived at the gate of Enlil, wise war counselor, it was already nighttime. It was already the middle watch. His house was already encircled about. The gods did not know it was already nighttime. It was already the middle watch. And there'll be a lot of this, so you have to overlook it. And that's why I say I'll only read the first tablet. And some of the stuff I've been skipping over in the first tablet because it does just repeat the same thing back and back. But for the sake of not losing spaces and me not having everything highlighted, I continue to read this way. So I continue. Uh, Akur had already been encircled, but Enlil did not know it. But his servant, Calcal, had the good sense to close the gate. He secured and locked and then kept an eye on the entryway. Calcal went and woke Numsku, and they observed the Ajiji. Numsku then went to wake up his lord, got him out of bed. Master, you must know that your house is surrounded, and a raucous mob has already gathered about your door. Master Enlil, you must know your house is surrounded, and a raucous mob has already gathered about your door. So Enlil had weapons he kept for his residence brought out. Enlil raised his voice to be heard, saying to this officer Numsku, Numsku, first you must go and uh, suitably secure the door. Then pick up your weapons and set yourself before me. So Numku went and sought to suitably secure the door, then picked up his weapons and took his place before Enlil. Numsku raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the chief Enlil. And so what's going to happen so far is that the gods in the beginning that we talked about in the Numeralists, Enki, Enlil, Asut, and all them, they was building the earth and creating the earth, and then it got too hard for them, so they had the Gigi to become the working class, and the Gigi with two different classes of high gods, also the divinities as well. And they was working and toiling, and they got tired of it, and they were complaining and falling out with each other. So they said, "Look, we're tired of this, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna rage this war. So we're going straight to the God of war, and we're gonna, he's the counselor, and he's the one over this stuff, and he's the earth god. So we're gonna approach him about our complaints, and we're gonna make this known." So they went there and they threw their stuff down and made their fire, and it went up to the fire god below before Enlil's house. But that's what I was laughing at earlier too. They were like, they they were literally mad, boy. They was raising some king. But anyway, um, sorry about that. Page 60, as I said before, you have to pause it and do your best. And 61. I hope 61 came through a little bit more clearer for you. And if not, I hope it was good enough. We're on page 60. My Lord, behold, your face has become pale as a turmeric. For what reason do you? So this is they're talking to Enlil. So this is when Enlil told his guy to secure the door and do all this other stuff. So they're looking at Enlil now and saying, "Man, what's that happening? You don't turn pale as a ghost. You must be, you must be shit scared." my My Lord, behold, your face has become pale as a turmeric. For that reason do you show such fear in your own clan. So show such fear of your own clan. In Leo, behold, your face hath become pale as a turmeric tree. For that reason do you show such fear of your own clan, making an announcement that anew might come to your aid, and do so that Enki will have cause to stand by your side. So a herald was sent with word that anew might come to him, and so that Enki had cause to journey and stand at his side, so that now the king of the wide heavens anew had arrived, and so took to the king of the mighty Apsu of the abyss. I'm sorry, of the mighty abyss. Enki was there too. Also, there gathered the greater Nunakai to be in attendance. Enlil stood up to make his case, raising his voice to be heard. He spoke to the entire assembly of the high gods gathered. Have they raised up in armed rebellion so to dispose me? Ought I not rise my weapons to go against my own clan? So that so what did I behold here with my own eyes when I looked? But that there was an angry mob assembled about my door. Anu raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the chief Enlil, then commanded Nupsku to go the Igigi the Igigi's purpose. Have him establish the will of those gathered at your door. A word from uh, a word from you, and his whole thing could be cleared up. To find out what reason they had gathered at the door, Enlil raised his voice to be heard, saying to his officer Nupsku, go first to open the door, then pick up your weapons and take your place before me. Then go, I'm on page 61, and then go out among the gods. First prostrate yourself, then rise up and speak to them this. Your father knew supreme authority in Leo, the Lord Nimrod, and the manager of your kennels in Nungi, which wish me to request, who is the one among you who is the leader of this hated mob? Who is the one among you who is organizer of this uprising? Who among you have turned his face into the arena of war? Who are you that have come here hastily to the door of Enlil? So Nupsku went and opened the door, picked up his weapons, then took his place before Enlil in the presence of the gods. After prostrating himself, he rose up and spake to them thusly. Your father knew supreme authority in Leo and the Lord, and I'm going to skip over there because I was saying earlier, uh, I won't have to read over the same thing that he just did and just said. So I'm going to skip down to right here to where the bold writing is, right below the bold writing on 61, the last paragraph. Every one of the gods is ready to come to blows over this, and we have thus stopped partaking in our endless diggings. The burden is far too heavy for us, and diminishing us. The weight is very great. The work is too taxing, a sore plight. And so each god sought to bring his discontent before Enlil. Nupsku uh, held up his weapon, turned and came back to Enlil. My lord, I performed my mission to disclose the situation. I went to find an answer to why your door is surrounded. Heaven explicitly the things you have charged me to convey. This then is what response you gave to me to reply and said, every one of the gods is ready to come to blows over this, and we have thus stopped partaking in our endless diggings. The burden is too far heavy for us, and it is diminishing us. The weight of the weight is very great. The work is too taxing, and it's sore plight. And so each god sought to bring his discomfort before Enlil. So Enlil listened to everything he said and became cheerful. Enlil chose words with care, speaking to the uh, conqueror anew, wise judge. Return with the verdict to your heavenly realms. Flex your muscles before the Anunnaki gathered about you. Declare one God from among them. Allocate him to perish. Anu raised his voice. And okay, before I go into that, page 62 and 63, I'm not sure if I showed that to you guys, but if I didn't, I apologize. And see, can I get it right now? Over here, 62. Y'all know in Leo, they said before, the god of war. And so they came and they declared the war to come to the god of war. And Enlil ain't having it. Enlil ain't putting up with it. Enlil say, you want these problems, you got it. You know, I heard all your complaints. Don't care about none of that. You want war? Here it is. So he spoke to his father Anu and asked Anu to flex his muscles. And so I'm gonna continue to read into that. I just had to share that. And Anu raised his voice and heard speaking to his fellow gods. For what reason would we have to criticize their complaint? The weight was too great. The work was too taxing. A sore plight. Every day the earth re-echoed the sounds of their agonies. This was a warning which we all heard. It was clear enough. And Anu was saying that, hey, I hear you, Enlil, but this is something we all already knew were coming. We've been hearing the complaint. The work was too heavy. It was too heavy for us. That's why we gave it to them. So their complaints are true, you know, so they're not wrong with their complaints. Okay. When you are there with the Anunnaki gathered around you, and so too is Belet Eli, the womb goddess. And I may be butchering her name, so if you had to pause it, you can get it and catch it yourself. Uh, and they asked for the womb goddess in their presence. Declare one of the gods among them to allocate him to perish and raise his voice. Anu raised his voice to be heard, saying to his officer Numsku, Numsku, go first to open the door and pick up your weapons, then go out and prostrate yourself before the gathered gods. Then rise and raise your voice to be heard and say to them, your father Anu, supreme authority, Enlil, the Lord Nimrod, and the managers of your canals, and Nunergy, which wish me to request, who is the one amongst you who is the leader of this um, hated mob? Who is the one among you who is organized in the uprising? Who among you has turned his face among the arena of war? Who of you are have come here hastily to the door of Enlil? So when Numsku heard everything, he picked up his weapons. Then after prostrating himself before the gathering of the gods, he rose and raised his voice to be heard and said to them, Anu your father, supreme authority, Enlil, Nimrod, and it goes back through that same spiel. And Enlil now, okay, so he comes back to Enlil now after he's done it and made the same spiel with to the Anunnaki. This Nunsky spoke to carry out the duty given to him by Enlil. Now Allah raised his voice to be heard, speaking to Numsky. Every one of the gods is ready to come to blows over this, and we have this spoken, partaking in all endless digging. The burden is too far heavy. The burden is far too heavy for us, and it was. And so this is Allah, the God that was with the Ajizi. So there's a different God from the Anu and those different gods. So there Allah, the God of the Quran is a lower God in a sense. As he is a lower God than the other gods. He's with the Ajijis. Even though he's with some of the most high gods, they was able to be placed in a place beneath the original gods. Um, and we have stopped partaking in our endless digging, the burden to for here, okay, and the weight to break and the work to its action sore flight. And we're on page 64 and 65. Uh, so Hope you can get both of those real quick. 64, 65. And so each god sought to bring his discontent before Enlil. Numsku lifted up his weapon, turned, and came back to Enlil. My lord, I performed my missions to declare the situation. I went to find an answer as to why your door is surrounded. Heaven explicated the things you gave me charge to convey. This then is what response was giving me to reply. They said, every one of the gods is ready to come to blows of this, and we have thus stopped partaking in our endless diggings, and the burden is too great. And so they went through that, and then it says again, he went through the same thing that we just got finished reading. And so Enlil listened to everything he said and became tearful. Enlil chose words with care, speaking to the um, cabinet anew. Wise judge, return with this verdict to your heavenly realm. Flex your muscles before the Anunnaki gathered among you. Declare one God from among them. Allocate him to Paris. So he said, hey, out of all the people, go on ahead and tell them I need one to die. With all the planning and complaints that they got, we need one of them to die. This is Enlil's response. And what he said was some tearful words and with some teary eyes. So I don't know if the eyes were from being mad or if it really pissed him off that mad, but it don't seem like he had too much compassion in his eyes when he was tearing up to me. Okay, so E, the same one as Inky. It says here, E raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his brother's gods. For what reason would we have to criticize their complaints? Their weight was too great, the work too taxing, a sore plight. Every day the earth re-echoed the sounds of their agony. This was a warning which we all heard, and it was clear enough. This is the only one course open to use, and a single thing to do. We must create a creature who can carry the burdens of the gods. And then the womb goddess, I'm not going to try to pronounce her name again, is here to make a primitive man that he be made the bearer, he be made to bear the yoke and to carry the burdens. And so here you're still gonna have Enlil wanting to do a thing and uh wanting something to be done about the whole uproar because they're at his door. And he went to his father Anu and asked Anu, to fix this. And Anu was like, rightfully, their complaints are right because we had the same complaints. We gotta do something about it. There's a womb God there, and we're gonna allow her to create man, or we're gonna create man so as he can carry the burden. And Leo's still upset, go through, I need y'all to pick one out of y'all group to die. Out of all your people out there, my clan, I still gotta kill one of y'all for surrounding my door. And that's just I'm saying that's just my partake of it and my spin on it. And then his brother Inky which is wise as well. They call him the astute Inky. He also said that there's only one thing to do is create this man because they're right. And so now we're going into that over here on page 65. Let him be the one to bear the yoke who does Enlil's work. And so man will be the one who performs the labors of the gods. I'm still going to say Inky, raised his voice to be heard, saying to his officer Numsku, go first to open the door and pick up your weapons, then go and prostrate yourself before the gathered gods. Then raise your voice to be heard, and say to them, your father Anu, supreme authority Enlil, and the Lord Nimrod, and the managers of the canal in Inuji, which wish me to request. Who is the one among you who is the leader of this hated mob? Who is the one among you who is organizer of this uprising? Who among you have turned his face into the arena of war? Who are you that have become here hastily to the door of Enlil? So when Numsku heard everything, he picked up his weapons. Then, after prostrating himself before the gatherings of the gods, excuse me, he rose and raises his voice to be heard and said to them, Anu, your father supreme authority, Enlil, and the Lord Nimrod, and the managers of the canals which to request who is among you, and he goes through this same thing again. And then after all of that, now Allah, he raises his voice out of the Ajijis and to be heard speaking to Numsku. Every one of the gods is ready to come to blows about this. And this has started protecting in them, and the weight is too great. Numsku, I'm going to page 66 and 67. I apologize about that once again. And so I skipped down a couple of them because they're saying the same thing we've heard before. This weapon in turn came back to India. My lord, I performed the missions. Right down to fourth, sixth, seventh line. I went to find an answer as to why your door is surrounded, having explained the things that you have for me to charge out, change to convey. This when it this then is what response they gave me in reply. They said every one of the guys ready to come to blow. And it was too heavy, too burdensome. I'm back down here almost at the bottom of the page. So Enlil listened to everything he said and became tearful again. The Enlil chose words with care, speaking to uh, the combated anew. Wise judge, return with the verdict to your heavenly realm. Flex your muscles before the Anunnaki gathered about you. Declare one God from among them. Allocate him to perish. Enlil raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his brother gods. For what reason would we have to criticize their complaints? The weight was too great. The work was too taxing and sore plight. Every day the earth re-echoed the sounds of their agony. This was a warning which we all heard, and it was clear enough. This is only one course open to us, and with a single thing to do, we must create a creature who can carry out the burden of the gods. And then the womb goddess is here. Have her bear offsprings, that man will be the one who performs the labors of the gods. So after all of that, Enlil come around to the same conclusion that we got to build these people. And they still needed one in Paris. That wasn't going to change. Still have a few more, some of this stuff I will. Okay. We're about there. I'm on page 67 and about to finish it up under the labor of the gods that man was created. They called the goddess the midwife, Screw Mammy, saying, "You are the womb goddess. Give rise to the species of man. Give rise to the primitive human to perform the labor of the gods." And so too, before I go further, and I don't keep eyelashes getting on my nerves. Over skipping this is that the creation of man is different from the creation story that we're here in Genesis of God creating man and giving him power or creating man. It didn't really give a definition of why he created man, but he created man after he created all these other things from Genesis 1. And then he created Adam afterwards. But in Genesis 2, he created man and then allowed man to name all these other things. But he did make man in his likeness and image per biblical standpoint. So the Elohims created man in their likeness and image to be in the garden to live a beautiful, everlasting fairy tale life with happy endings. And it went wrong, and there was a bunch of stuff that went on in there, and man didn't get the happy ending, yada yada yada, to the end of the Bible where it comes to man being able to attain a happy ending. But and here you see the different reason for the man being created is to carry on the burdens of the gods. Uh, so in a sense too, I can see the man being made in the likeness and the image of God because it's being taken at God to create him. And if we go through the story here, you're going to see how they end up taking the God to create the man. But anyway, there's a different story for the reason of man. A lot of times, well, most of the time, the Bible story was given to give a beautified story of the why am I here, or why did God create me? I was created in God likeness and image to do what? And if I was created in God likeness and image, then I'm a God, and et cetera, et cetera. But why did God create me, or why are people on the earth, and why are people the way that they are? You know what I mean? So this is the different and the older version of it outside of the Bible version. So the necessity of the creation of man to be upon the earth to do a thing by the gods is totally different here in most of the original writings that we have compared to the pretty story that we have now. So, where was I at? Okay, give rise to the primitive humans to perform the labors of the gods. Let him be the one to bear the yoke, who does Enlil's work, so that the man will be the one who performs the labor of the gods. Nymptu raised her voice to be heard, speaking to the high gods. It is not the best that I fashion him. This is better done by Enki. And so this is when Enki name has been changed from E to E A to Enki. And earlier it talked about him as the astute Enki, also giving him another characteristic into the name or the role of that god. For it is by his effort, by his of efforts that things are made free from error. But if he provides me with clay, I will certainly carry it out. Enki raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the high gods. Know that on the first, 7th, and 15th of the month, I will conduct a water purification, and one god will be slain. Thus the gods will be cleansed through these holy ablutions. Then Nemtu will combine the clay with his flesh and blood, so that a being divine and mortal, so godly like and mortal, divine and mortal, will come from the clay. Then we will hear the heartbeat rhythm from henceforth. Let the spirit arise into being from out of the divine flesh, but let her relate to him with he is or while he is alive of his condition, so they will never forget that the spirit is eternally made. So it's saying that he's going to have a spirit to come up out of this man in this fleshly body. And so if we get the message today that we are eternally made, we are made out of this eternal spirit. We are made out of the Anunnaki blood. We are made out of the essence of the things that are celestial, as I talked about earlier, of the sky, the sun, the moon, the universe, or anything else that we can see that we call outer space. We are made out of that. That is what we are. This is the God that we are. So when you hear me talking about the God, or understanding or recognizing the God that I consider myself as a being, as God is the creator of all of that, and it is not a one singular being, but I am a part of all of that. That is what I am. I am a part of that God. My body and everyone's bodies, as I can say, um, is also your body is full of cells and organisms and powers and great things, and you are a collective piece of the universe. You are just as wonderfully made as that as I am. But back to the reading. Um, 68 and 69. I don't know if I showed y'all those two. Sorry if I've got lost in that, but I'm gonna start back there and go with it. And all gathered in the assembly gave the affirmation. So yeah, I'm right. And the holy Anunnaki, who were the determiners of destiny, then it was on the first, 7th, and 15th of the month that he conducted a water purification through immersions. The wise gods Ilagwa, uh, Ilawala, was chosen to be the slain of the Congress. Nimtu combined together the clay with his flesh and blood, so that they heard the heartbeat rhythm from henceforth, and the spirit arose into being from out of the divine flesh. Nimtu related to man while he was alive of his condition. So Nimtu, she being the goddess that was able to relate to the spirit of man or relate to the man while he was in this condition of being formed that he is spiritual being. So this is the part about us, or the spiritual essence about us, that she was portraying and to let us know that no matter what you're going through in this flesh that you're in, you are a spiritual essence. So she was speaking to man in that condition that he was in, that I read prior on page 67. Um, okay. And then to relate to man while she was alive in his condition, so they would never forget that the spirit is eternally made. So that's what she was saying. So know that this is where we come from. We come from the all eternal. We are made in the likeness and the image of the eternal God. Then after having done this, she combined together the clay. Then she covered the high gods. She convened the high gods, both Anunnaki and Agigi, and she caused her spittle to dribble onto the heap of the clay. Then Mammy raised her voice, speaking to the high gods. I have done precisely the task that was given to me to do, and you have slain a god altogether along with his mind. Now I have brought you release from your tiresome task, and have caused your burdens to be shifted unto mankind, while you have given humanity the capacity for speaking. Thus I have released the burdens and brought you freedom. Hearing every word spoken with relief, they kissed her feet. Until now, we have preferred to you by the name of Mammy, but henceforth you shall be called mistress of all the gods. Then Absolute Inky and wise Mammy went to the abode of fate. There the womb goddess had already gathered together. Moon page 69. And there she stomped upon the clay pile where she stood by. So she chanted the spells Inky, who was there, asked her to. When she had finished, she pulled off 14 bits of clay, sitting out 7 bits on her right and 7 bits on her left. And midway between the columns, she set there a mud brick. And then she spit upon a stiff reed and severed the umbilical. Then called over the cleaver and whirly womb goddess, were here 7 and 7 were 7 males and 7 females. For the womb goddess were the determiner of destinies. So she covered each pair. Inky covered them as she looked, and Mammy set forth the following customs for the people within the dwelling of the women, who is the one bearing. And this is going to get into a bunch more other stuff that I feel like I'm going to go ahead and read it because it gives a little more detail, just like the Bible gives more details about the woman who goes through her cycle of having a baby and all the things she has to go through prior to giving birth and etc. etc. But I'm gonna go ahead and read that. Within the dwelling of the women who are the bearing. Okay, so she covered each pair and mama forth the following to people. Within the dwelling of the women who is the one bearing, then shall the mud brick be placed there for 7 full days. Then there will be a tribute to the womb goddess, the Sagaris Sadrash's mammy, and joy in the midwife heart within the new mother's home. After bearing her baby, then the mother will separate herself. Thus the man will be paired with the girl who is yet a virgin, only after maturing when her bosom has fully developed, and when the young man beard is seen upon his cheeks. So they're saying that there's a certain custom that they're going to go through and have the mud brick placed there for so many days until the woman has the baby and it's cut off, and they're going to be with the mama, or be there until the young girl has breasts and showing maturity, and the young man has hair on his face showing maturity as well. So this is the custom that they have set up into man. And I believe that it will be the same way it says in the Bible that a man will leave his home and cling to a woman, and then they become one flesh and make their own home. This is the same thing saying that this happens around those times of maturity. And not just so much for today's time, but for the purpose of what they are doing here as far as creating beings to be able to reproduce for the labor of the gods. So it's more so catered around that as well. I'm just saying this where it speaks to me out from the Bible of hearing it in a sense of the structure and the order that they're given that she's setting up. It wasn't the single God setting it up, but this is one of the female God that is setting this up. Okay, so we're going to finish 69 here. Within the garden and the paths will she find her husband. So this is supposed to be the Garden of Eden, and also that when the gods created man and placed him in the Garden of Eden, and placed him with all the fruit and all the animals and all the vegetation and all the yada yada yada. This is also the place of the breeding ground for these humans that they're making inside of the garden. And they were going to have a range, and I don't know if it'll be that explicitly read when I read into it, but they're going to have times that they get together to have these babies inside of the Garden of Eden and schedule birth, plan pregnancy. Okay. Okay, within the gardens and path where she found her husband, and the womb goddess came together with there with Nimtu. So inside the garden, these people came to there when they reached their maturity age, and they were able to find their path in the garden where they were able to come and sit down and have these babies. These goddesses and the goddesses were going to meet them there, and they were to do these rituals in honor to them, in the same way that they were created in the first way with the brick of clay that they're going to have that was in the middle between the 7 males and the 7 females. So, okay. And they counted every day of the month as they went by, assigning the 10th month to be the designated duration. So on the 10th month, when they were planning the pregnancy for these male and the female that have now come into maturity with the hair on their face and the boobs, they're going to meet in the pathway, and they're going to set these things in together. And these goddesses were going to be there to make sure that the womb goddess and the other god can be there that they conceive. Okay. And then after all full term, upon arrival of the 10th month, she would definitely manage a measure and open the womb. Sorry, turn the page. Page 70 and 71. Take that. And her expression would be one of the joy and satisfaction, and she would drape her head and take the role of the midwife. She would then secure her belt and speak loud a blessings. So I apologize. They were saying that the term of 10 months is when they would have the baby, not the term of 10 months is when they would meet and have the sex, but at the end of the 10 months is when the baby would come, not the 9 months that we have now. And if you think about it, from the time of conception to the time that they say that you're pregnant, most of the time they find you pregnant is several weeks prior to. So you're actually, from the time of conception to the time of birth, it's not the 9 months or the time spent from the time that they notice or the pregnancy test show that you're pregnant to the time that you have the child. So with that, then she would then secure her belt and speak aloud a blessing, then spread flour into a pitcher and set out a mud brick. I was the one who created my hands. I was the one who created my hands, the one which made the midwife will be joyous and in the nursing priestess house. Anywhere a woman giveth birth and the mother is separate, then there shall the mud brick be placed for a full 9 days, and the womb goddess Nimtu shall receive her due honors. Then she will utter the name of their undying mother, Mammy, and likewise will she speak the name of the womb goddess and spread out a cloth of linen when the house bed is made. Okay, so we're gonna run on down through at the bottom of 70. The wife and the husband will select each other for partners, and Ishtar will be gladdened by the wedding of the man and the wife, where it will take place within the dwelling of the father-in-law, and there shall be celebration which has for fully 9 days there where there will call upon Princess Ishtar, Princess Ishtar by the name of Ishahara. Then on the 15th day, as was being determined by destiny, she will call the bride and the groom together to the bridal bed. The man and wife will then live together, bound to one another, and shall carry out the work of their existence, acting in virtue, never straying from the honorable, bringing the gifts of God. So this is the first man and woman being created, the first pairs, and after the first pairs being created, they're telling you how they're gonna reproduce and recreate life and the rules and the standards that go with it. So in the beginning of Genesis, whenever God told man, the only thing that he told man in Genesis was, you can eat off all the trees, but off this tree don't eat. But in the earlier part of Genesis, in the creation in the garden, they wasn't giving order to live and order to do nothing else. They was giving herbs to eat and giving a dietary decree, but they wasn't giving structure yet. So here you're gonna get a lot of the things I feel like maybe missing in why do we do certain things, or how do we do this, or how did they come up with these certain things, or um before the Ten Commandments, or not Ten Commandments, but before Eve could do that thing, when did Eve get the message? When did God give Eve the message? Because it said that he gave this commandment to Adam. And so, but anyway, this right here gives a little bit more detail about the structure of the humans and what they were going to be doing and setting up the going forward with humanity that they've created and the structure that they were to live by. Give me 1 second. I got to step out of here, go get me a drink. And I'll be back on page 70 at the bottom before we go into 71. But I'll be right back. All right, that was quick. And so, determine this, the man and the wife will live together in person and virtue. Okay, so still at bottom of 70 and be on 71 here second. Never straying from the honorable, bringing the gifts to the gods, to live according to the ways established for them by the gods. So this is what their decree is. These are their 10 commandments, or their commandments that they're gonna do these things, they're gonna live in virtue, they're gonna continuously bring an honorable, bringing a gift to the gods, um, and live a life according to the ways established for them by the gods, and whatever order we're hearing about here, they're gonna continuously to do that. To live free from adulterous acts and satisfying homosexuality, to live free from shameful acts or what brings hands to guilt. Do not attain your wealth unduly, but gain by upright means. Be satisfied with your own things and do not take from others. Do not engage in deceit, but declare all truthfully and honestly. Above all, honor the gods, and after them, honor your parents. Perform labor so you can manage through your own efforts, because the one who is idle makes his livelihood from stealing. Learning a skill gives a man his living. The slothful go hungry. Do not find yourself eating what another man has left behind. Rather, attain your food properly from the fruit of your labors. But if he fails to acquire a skill, it in its place he must plow the hoe. There is no shortage of work for one who is agreeable to labor. That's a good. I mean, when you read over this stuff, it's some real good stuff. And if you what I mean, if you just listen to it, it's great principles and great stuff from which I've already naturally lived by, being honorable and peacefully, make sure my money is straight by not jipping nobody by the work that I do and charging for the or swapping out for the labor that I do in fiat currency, that I be fair and be righteous with them, and expect the same thing. And so that way I don't take corrupt money and put it over in with good money, or put things that has an opportunity to be taken back instead of increasing with the things of increase. But these are great things here. And it says that what I like to hear real quick too is, but if he fails to acquire a skill in its place, he must plow the hoe, mean work. Go ahead and work. You can do some physical labor. There is no shortage of work for one who is agreeable to labor. Meaning, man, they plenty of work to do. As long as you're willing to work, bro, they ain't no short of it. So get it in your mind. You can make $1. If you ain't got one, you, you don't have one because you ain't went and did nothing. But anyway, become a marine merchant if wishing to sail. The seas are vast. If you prefer to plow, cultivate land, the countryside is wide. Nothing worthwhile comes without toil for man or for gods. Meaning, if you got anything worth having, it ain't came without you having to damn do something for it, for the man's or the gods. You know what I mean? So even for them in their position, it came with some stuff. Likewise, through work and enlarges his own righteousness. Likewise, through work, one enlarges his own righteousness. And I might come back and do another video about some of these right here and talk about this and do another segue on the good principles in this. When ants leave their nest unseen deep within the earth, driven by their requirement that they provide themselves, when the field has filled the threshing floor with its bounty, after reaping the carry loads of the newly threshing grain. And we only got a couple more pages, and I'm gonna get into the plot about the story about the Alshrahasis and why he's here. This is just more, I feel like, good stuff to have as far as literature into the story and the creation story. But we're gonna still get into the Alshrahasis and why he's important. Um, and the flood that comes about later on. That's the part I won't get into and read too much about. I'm just going to speed through, but we're almost there. So here at 72, be it wheat or barley, one hauler follows behind the other. It is from summer's harvest that they stock up winter's food. Not given to rest, these minutes ones do a fair share of labor, while two the bees works through the air, toiling tiresomely, be it within the cliff of any empty rock or amongst reed beds, or be it within an old hollow oak tree. There inside their nest, swarming is their combs of innumerable cells making wax. Thus man will seek his work and continue until the twilight. Prepare the home for his arrival when his day work is done. The father's son learn this from him, remaining at his side. The gods went out to look upon the task being done nearby. They remained there a while and then went to the god Enlil, and he gathered up the things which were required to forge. He then saw the fathers and his sons and walked up to them. Enlil showed them the way to smelt iron and to work steel, and they took up the metal implements from the ash piles. From these they produced new picks and spades and utilized to dig long channels to provide food and please the gods. And real quick, when you hear about Enlil doing all these other things in the book of Enoch and in the Bible, you'll hear about the fallen angels and those beings being the one teaching mankind about the working of the iron and doing all these other things, and the other angels that taught them witchcraft and the working of spells and the roots and all these other things. But it's speaking here, it's saying that Enlil was showing them when he seen the fathers and sons on the earth and doing it, said, look, this is what you need to do. I'm gonna show you how to make these tools. So as you can work the earth and cultivate it, and it'll give you back a yield that'll take care of you and your family. Y'all just make sure y'all don't stop giving us what we need. You gotta keep giving me the harvest. You gotta keep giving me the 10%. Anyway, they still gonna make your offerings to the gods. Okay. Enlil showed them the way to smelt iron and other things. From these, they produce new picks and spades and utilize them to dig along channel to provide food and to please the gods. And the waters fed the lands well. Food became abundant. People harvested their fields and grains, made bread and ate. They performed uh, then for the first time the many sacrifices. So they prepared a flour offering to the gods, their patrons, and they prepared a food offering to the gods, their patrons. They prepared a present offering to the gods, their patrons. They prepared a show offering for the gods, their patrons. They prepared a smoke offering to the gods, their patrons. They prepared a disperse offering to the gods, their patrons. They prepared an incense offering to the gods, their patrons. In addition to this, they made their daily sacrifices to the gods. And the gods enjoyed their offering and were contented. But man gathered, going about their business in the towns. They ate their bread and drank their beer and had offerings, and their numbers became more and more greater by four. So it talks about here about when the man did these things too, you hear about all these offerings that you hear about Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and maybe in Exodus too, but Leviticus and Deuteronomy, when they got all the order for making all these offerings, and also I think it was um, with Moses giving the law too about a bunch of these different, like the showbread offering and the incense and making the offering to the gods and all those things there. You hear about it in the Bible as well. So this is the plight of man. This is what they're doing, and they was eating good and doing all this other stuff. And I'm gonna read this here, then I'm gonna speed through and um, be finished with the Asher story here. So now that man that did this, they done went through. We done went through the things with the gods and the one of the near war to take place with the gods with only one casualty and humanity being made and mankind being made and the decrees given by man and the things that they'll perform. So they said 600 years, not even 600 years went by. This is after all this creation of man and all this other stuff we just got finished reading. The inhabited land sprawled and the people grew plentiful, and the inhabited lands raised a howl like a bowling bull. But the gods was annoyed, but the God, and they're talking about Enlil, but the God was annoyed by all the noise that they made. Enlil had to put up with all their loud clamor and clatter. Enlil raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the high gods. The noise which is made by man has become too great. All of his clamor and clatter has kept me from my sleep. Therefore of man an outbreak of the shiver diseases. And thus the divine Naptamara was summoned by the gods. Then the divine Naptara unleashed, and I might pronounce the name wrong, but anyway, unleashed the shivering disease, and all the people were beset by the plague outbreak. There was one man among them who was named Ashrahasis, and he heeded diligently the words spoken by his god Enki. Enki was his god. So even all the other gods that had their places, they had their own people, they had their own ones. So Enki was his god. Enlil was the people, he had his gods. And later on, if we get a chance to talk about it, Nimrod had his people. Allah had his people. Yahweh had his people. All the different gods had their people and had their one. But Atrahasis was one we're talking about in this story here is the same one as Noah. And before we get to the end of this, right here at the end of it, we'll talk about the flood and what was to come with the deluge is what they call it. They didn't call it a flood. Well, they did call it a flood, but they called it a deluge. Okay. He often communed with his God, receiving the God's reply, saying that he would talk to God and God would talk back to him. He would talk to Inky, Inky would talk back to him. Unlike sometimes we have the miscommunication between the God that we know, a lot of times, or the God of the Bible speaking back and being silent. Then we say he's an on time God. May not come when you want him to, but he's always on time. That's Job. That's a different story, a different broadcast too. Anyway, Ashahashis raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his Lord. And we're on the last two pages here. 74 and 75 for the first tablet of Ashahashis out of the three. How long are we going to be beset by this terrible disease? It is their intention that we bear these syndromes for all time. Inky raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his servant. Bring together the elders, gather to you the men of rank, so as to instigate a rebellion within your own community. Send out messengers to announce this within every district, and cause them to raise a loud cry throughout all lands, that you no longer will pay fitting homage to your gods, that you no longer beseech the favor of your goddesses, but rather find your way to the door of the god Namtara. Present him a loaf of baked bread, leave a flour offering, and let him feel his own shame upon receiving their gifts, so that he might remove from his discredited hand. Ashahashis did as he was told, bringing the elders to the door, and he raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the elders. I have brought together the elders of the men of rank, so as to instigate a rebellion within our own community. Send out messengers to announce this within every district. They cause them to raise a loud cry throughout all lands, that you no longer will pay fitting homage to your gods, that you no longer beseech the favor of your goddesses, but rather find your way to the door of the god Naptara. Present him a loaf of baked bread, leave a flour and offering, and let him feel his own shame upon receiving these gifts, and he might remove from off of us his discreditable hand. And the elders paid heed to his prudently spoken advice. The, Thus they built a temple in the city, dedicated it to Naphtara, sent out messengers to announce this within every district, and caused him to raise a loud cry throughout all the lands. Caused them to raise a loud cry throughout all the lands. So they no longer would pay fitting homage to their gods. So they no longer beseeched the favor of their goddesses, but rather found their way to the door of the god Naphtara, presenting him a loaf of bread, presented him a loaf of baked bread, left a flour offering, such that he himself felt shamed upon receiving these gifts, so that he removed from off of them his discredited hand, and the shiver diseases was no longer a menace to them. Then after this the gods received among their daily offerings. Thus their numbers were no less, though their numbers were no less, but become even greater, while the racket, the clamor and clatter grew even louder. So thank you for staying with me as long as you did. Thank you for coming out and being willing to come out and stay as long and knowing that you came with the intention to stay as long as I was talking, or I will be here. But regardless, thank you for coming up to this point. So now we're at the point where Enlil been the god of the earth, or a certain area of the earth, and this has been his domain. Apsu been out there in the ocean, and Leo got all dry land where the areas at. Now Anu got it up in heaven, the sky, up under the firmament, and that is his place. So he's saying that the man that we created, that we all decided that we needed to do, we came together and created this man. They have reproduced. We created not just this man, but they created man and a woman. Because when she created seven of each, seven men and seven women. And so if we wanted to try to say Okay, that she created different races. You had this race male, this race female, this race male, this race female, this race male, and this. So in Leo being the god of the earth is tired, and it's like the people are always working. If they ain't working, they're living, they're partying, they're enjoying life. It's just too much for me. I can't never sleep. So he made a complaint, and they brought the shivers. And Harshis as being a righteous one in the Bible, Noah was known to being one who found favor in God's sight, or found grace in the sight of God, and God decided to save Noah and his families. And Ashahashis is the same person, but Enki is that God, not the God of the Bible that we will know of as the same one God throughout the Bible, the Father of Jesus. But um Ashahashis was the one that found favor or had grace in the eyes of Enki, in the eyes of his God. And Enki was able to tell him what to do to handle with the other guys in order to get the God that that brought about the plague upon them, or the shiver upon them, how to make them feel shameful enough to for receiving all these offerings that everybody's not giving to all their gods or the other gods. They're only giving it to the God that's bringing the punishment. And Lil is not getting it. Anu is not getting it. Enki is not getting it. Nimrod is not getting it. Any no other gods are getting the offerings or the sacrifices given by the mankind, but they gave all the righteous, even the mother, with the bread brick that they're supposed to give when they're pregnant and all this other stuff. So they gave that to him, and he lifted the shivers. Goes on down that they tell you here at the end when I got finished reading that the man really didn't die; they still began to multiply and increase. And so they brought later on, and Leo went and complained again, and they brought about a a drought, a wind, and and asked the nourishing God not to allow nature to reproduce. Don't let the harvest or any of the things that they need to sustain their life with as for the food and the grain. Don't allow it to happen. Y'all hold back. And so Ashur did the same thing. He prayed and wanted to know what was going on, and he was brought favor from Enki, and Enki told him what to do. Basically, the same thing. Go take these things to these gods and don't give it to the other gods. And it was set into play. Now, some people did die, but they kept on going, and it got to the point where he even brought other diseases and other plights on the earth and holding back all water to life was coming down. But once Ashahashi was able to go to Inky, Inky was able to help him out, and they was able, humanity was straight again. But the time period went from 600 to 600 years to 300 years. And but anyway, it come down to them having a great deluge or a great flood, and the flood was going to be relief. And I think I talked about in the book. I know I talked about in the book of Enoch. They talked about the waters from above and below was being released upon the earth, and the great deluge that shook the heavens and all this other stuff that destroyed all the fallen angels. But in this story here, the great deluge was to come and to destroy all mankind. That Enlil was like, look, we made a mistake. We got to start from scratch. We got to get rid of all of these mankind because I can't deal with it. And they agreed to it. But when they was doing it, they were going to destroy it and leave the earth and be safe and maybe come back later and rebuild and redo it again. But Enki was able to save Ashahashis and tell him how to save him and his family. And as on their departure, Enlil was able to see that it was a bunch of betrayal. So they end up starting the War of the Gods, something that we didn't get into here. But Ashahashis being one of the oldest stories of the flood story, and the plight behind it was that the God Enlil, or the God similar to what we would call Yahweh. And as you go through Genesis, if we talk about all the time when man murmured or complained against God coming out of the land of Egypt, this is when God did a bunch of killing against the people for murmuring against him with Moses. And so this is, I believe, a rewrite or the reconfiguration of those stories. So when you hear about God killing off so many people, when they come out into the desert and in the wilderness for 40 days, 40 years, and all this other stuff, and the people getting idol gods, this was Enlil's way of killing them. And then you hear about their time to come in the land when there were droughts and famines all through the Bible, from Genesis uh, Genesis, Exodus, and then you get on to get Second Kings and the Kings and the Chronicles and all those other things that you have stories of droughts and famines and all type of bad things just happen, natural disasters, and Leah was causing them or having the gods to do it. He was going before the other high gods and having them to have these things in these places against humanity. So on tonight's Keys of Unlocking the Bible, the fourth creation story is one of the older ones. And like I said, you're gonna have the Enumelist and Gilgamesh with some older stories before that. But knowing that a lot of these stories in this literature is great stuff, it should help you be free from a lot of the uh, indoctrination or a lot of the things that you get with the teaching that comes with whatever it is, if it's from the Bible, which mostly I deal with, and the Christian mindset and the structure that it frames your mind into. This will give a lot of more openness to your mind to be able to explore different thoughts and ideas, besides having 66 books with a bunch of missing information or a bunch of questions still to be answered. And through our indoctrination and our teachings, we always make up stuff or either give off to the point of you can't question God, or those things ain't for you to ask God, or you shouldn't be worried about that. You shouldn't be worried about this. But anyway, I think there's a lot of things that we have spiritually that we are inclined to ask while we're in the process of being taught our indoctrination, are taught our beliefs, are being taught our religion, that there are answers and there are other things out there as well that would be good to know and good to have. So with nothing else, just comparison that with the Noah story and some of the things and the Bible story. If you are one that was raised up in the Bible or a good study of the Bible, you would know about or hear these stories. Here a bunch of them would tie together without me being able to actually tie them together. But like I said, it gives a little bit more insight into the creation of man and the thought of it and us being God and yada yada yada. And also, I like the little thing about basically some good moral things to have for a man to be able to survive in this life, which I haven't been able to see as changed. So if a man works hard intellectually, or if a man works hard physically, if a man works hard, he should be able to attain the things that he can have and want. If he be a good steward of it and be a wise person about the things that he's doing with what he has. And so also the other thing about experience comes with something. You can't get something without the experience. If it's from the results of a thought, belief, or whatever, you have to go through something in order to get the experience. And so as you can have the knowing of that thing, or you can have the overstanding of that thing. Um, you're not gonna get an egg without cracking an omelet. So you're not gonna be purified without going through the fire. You're not gonna get something from no thing unless you're understanding the real no thing that produces everything. That's another subject. But in layman terms, are real simple. If I ain't putting the money in the bank account, I can't get nothing out of it. But if I haven't put forth the effort to attain something, then it's just not just going to come to me. The law of attraction works with, bringing that thought into your mind, and it allows you a way to accomplish that thing. Then you got to put forth the effort to accomplish it. But anyway, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. Um, Hope you can go back over and watch the replays and pause and read. If nothing else, be able to get the book and go through it yourself and get your insight, your thoughts, and your opinions to bring them back. I want to thank you all for coming out and spending your time with me and investing in yourself to see what was going on. I'm glad our energy attracts each other. Um, yeah, like, subscribe, comment, get the notification. Also go to my descriptions that talks about the other things that we offer. Um, Also outside of that, other products that we offer. So check those out. Um, so until next time, next Wednesday, if I don't do another pop-up live video, and I think I'm going to call it um, What's Up Wednesdays. That's what I'm thinking about calling the shows that I do on Wednesday, or the live that I'm doing now on every Wednesday at 7. I think I'm going to call it What's Up Wednesdays. And so you have to come out Wednesday to see what we got going on, even though I still do my notifications and put out the video beforehand, but come out to see what's going up on Wednesdays. So until next time, peace to the God, peace to the goddesses, peace, love, and extreme health and extreme wealth to everyone else. Until next time, you guys have a great, great night.